The bad news is Linda asked me to speak for at least 45 minutes.
Linda.
Well, the good news is
You're not excited about that idea? Hey, I don't own the place anymore, but you owe me a lot of money. The other good news is I've asked the waiters to lock the doors as soon as I leave, and you are not allowed to leave until all of the wine. So we'll see you next Monday.
What do you pay for the Uber?
So, what would you like to hear from me?
how awesome we are.
The origins?
The origins of export in Team Horner.
There's a couple of different origins. One deep inside of me is this entrepreneurial, risk-taking monster that has always believed in continuous improvement and expanding whatever it is, wherever we're at, into something bigger and better. And the underlying principle is that in order to keep good people for a very long time, and look at Miss Rosa over there for 32 years, you want to have a better future. In other words, you want to feel like the company has a goal of being green and growing. And so that's always driven me in every phase of what we do in the team. And
You keep saying you got
They're gonna turn it down. Keep talking. They're gonna turn it down.
so,
Stop this.
okay.
That was a good time.
So in 1976,
I was born.
believe it or not,
No.
how many of you were actually on this earth in 1976?
Wow.
I was 7
All right.
years
I was cooking.
Me too.
I wasn't here.
That's a year after I had. See, I told you the doors were locked. So in 1976, which was a year after I had bought the founder, Earl Horner, that's how we got that Horner thing out, and he had moved back to New Jersey, where he belonged. Sorry, Mike. And, well, Mike's from New Jersey originally, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Camden.
Camden, wherever that is. So, so anyway, a guy named Bob Diaz, who back in 1976, the very large distributor of swimming pool equipment in Florida was a company named Miller Associates, believe it or not. They don't exist anymore. But they were the dominant, they were the pool corp in the 70s. And Horner was a tiny little thing across the street from where we are now on 57th Court. And so we really were just a little blip. And all of our customers were in Broward County. All of them. Which was pretty interesting. And we had one delivery truck and one guy in the warehouse and one guy on the counter and a girl that kept the books, and that was it. And a year after I bought the company out from Earl, a guy named Bob Diaz from Miami, who was working in the export department for this company called Miller Associates, came up to me, drove up and just walked in my office one day and said, I didn't actually have an office back then. There was one office for the entire company, and not as big as this room. You can see it, it's down the street on 57th Court. And anyway, he walked in and he says, I'm working for Miller. I had never met him. I'm working for Miller and I'm really unhappy. And are you interested in exporting to the Caribbean? Because I know a bunch of customers down there. So what did I say?
Sure. Why not?
You're hired. in compelling that was I never really wanted to, I wanted to expand our company, because all we had was business in Broward County, but I didn't want to do branches. And I thought at the time, well, to go to Palm Beach, or West Palm Beach, I've got to open a branch up there. And the company back then was very small and really didn't have any money to speak of. We weren't poor, but we had no extra assets to spend on anything. We were just paying our bills and all of that.
We used to unload the sand truck by hand.
Oh.
You
You
remember
need
that?
that, Charles? You handle it?
Power sand by hand.
No forklift.
And the stabilizer
No
also.
forklifts at the
Stabilizer from
There was
China.
no money for
There was no
forklifts.
money for forklifts. So anyway, so Bob came and he said, I'd like to open, he says, I'd like a job. And I said, great, well, let's open up an export company. So in 1976, we incorporated Horner Equipment International.
Yay!
Because we had Horner Equipment of Florida, so we had Horner Equipment International for the Caribbean and all that. So one thing led to another, and a year later, because I had really never been outside the United States before, Bob Diaz says to me, he says, we've got some good customers now in Venezuela. Why don't you go down there and meet them? I said, oh, that sounds like fun, you know, Caracas, right?
That's when I was born. And then
So I went to Caracas with Bob and met some of our customers down there, and I had the best time ever. I learned Spanish words I had never heard before.
We don't want to hear that.
And you know which one I know. So. Anyway, and I had a great time, and so I got inspired by the cultural exchange, because again, for me, I love the diversity of people and styles and all the things that all of you in this room collectively represent. And so I came back and I was pretty inspired by that, and I started trying to think, even though we're this tiny little company now, we've only got 4 or 5 employees, I kept thinking about how can we expand this? And so finally, about 4 years later, in 1980, I saw somewhere I saw an ad for a trade show that I thought was swimming pool related in Bahrain, in the Middle East.
Wow.
Huh? Yeah. So I said, what the shit? I'm taking a stand there. So I did. I flew to Bahrain and took a stand at this little show and found out later that they were selling drugs and flowers. So it became obvious that this was not a swimming pool show. And I didn't really know what Bahrain was at the time, but I figured it out. And then one day they had Yellow Pages there, so I looked up all the pool contractors there. And instead of standing all day at that booth, I just left the booth and went off and made sales calls. So I had another incredible cultural experience in Bahrain. I remember at 2 a.m. in the morning listening to Tina Turner in person, sitting next to the police chief of Bahrain. Manama is the city there, and he's trying to tell me that the police chief was buddies with the pool guy that took me, pool contractor. And so this police chief is trying to tell me that he wants to be my agent, my exclusive agent for Bahrain, so that he could get some kind of commission off anything we sell there. And I kept saying, you don't know a pump from a filter from nothing. So anyway, so I had a fabulous time there, and I was convinced that we should be in the international business at that point. Absolutely. And but things went on, and there was a big competitor who really dominated the international, a company called IMG. They're still in business. Now they're a division of Hayward. And the guy's name was Chuck, and he was a really intense competitor. And he had special deals, and so Hayward and Chuck really owned the Middle East, and there was a lot of construction there, just like there is today. And anyway, we couldn't get in and couldn't get in and couldn't get in. And then in 1985, okay, we started, the Caribbean part was going well. We had developed that very well in the Central South American part, like it is today. And then in 1985, I was at a trade show, and I'd always been active in the trade association from my very beginnings in the pool industry until today, really. And I found out accidentally through a stray conversation that a little company called Discus, which was based in California, in Palo Alto, California, was for sale. And that Chuck, our big competitor, was going to buy it. And I happened to know the guy who owned it because he was also an MSPI active guy. So I called him on the phone, not the cell phone, just the phone. And I said to Hank Moore,
one
his
you
name,
use?
I said, huh?
The one you have to spin around?
No, we had push buttons.
Good question.
Don't be a smart ass. I'm not that. Anyway, so I called him on the phone. I called his office and talked to his wife, and I said, please do not sign the documents. And I found out, because I was going to pay anything to get this company, because what it did is took us from this regional to a global business, where we had, because he had customers, he had like one customer in every country all over the world, except for the Caribbean. So from a strategic perspective, which that's where I live in strategy, this was like a home run. I don't care what it costs, we're gonna buy this sucker. And what I found out is that he wanted to work 3 years, he and his wife both, Beverly. He wanted to work 3 more years, he was 65 at the time, and he wanted a guarantee from Chuck Neville that they would keep the office in Palo Alto open for 3 more years. And Chuck hadn't agreed to that, so they were kind of quarreling over this one thing. And the first thing I told Hank when I finally got with him is, "You're here, 3 more years, baby." And so during those 3 years, Hank and I traveled the entire world because I had committed myself to meet every customer that he had. He had about 50 customers.
Wow.
Yeah, mostly one in each country. So we
What
went.
country you haven't been?
I'm sorry.
What country you haven't been?
Oh, there's 205 countries in the world, and I've only been to like maybe 120 of them.
That's it?
You haven't been anywhere.
But I've been to the good ones a lot more than So anyway, so that's kind of how we got to the global. Okay. And then I just basically from 1985, that's the year we bought Discus, until 1995 really, or even after that, I was spending 150 days a year, every year, out there, knocking on doors, creating new relationships.
Wow. That's great.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
You know, as time went on, another big thing happened in 1992, which changed my life a lot, and that is we went into the manufacturing business. In a period of 3 months, we bought 2, not 1, that we could barely manage, but 2 manufacturing companies, AquaCal and St. Pete, and what was called Lectrinator at the time, which was based in Cleveland, Ohio.
Some of my customers still has.
Lectrinator.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Those damn things won't die. You gotta beat them with a baseball bat.
From last century.
Yeah, so anyway, so we bought both of those companies. It wasn't a big strategic global 5-year strategic plan, Mike. It was just the phone rang and the right thing was said, and damn, there we were. And I won't tell those stories. But anyway, that's kind of how we changed our lives by becoming an integrated manufacturer, wholesale distributor, and global exporter. That's my elevator speech for who is Team Horner today. It's a integrated manufacturer, wholesale distributor, and global exporter of swimming pool stuff. It gets it done. It gets it done.
When do you get into rugs?
When did I what?
Into selling the rugs.
The rugs.
From Bahrain.
Oh. No, I've tried to sell rubber ties. I've tried to sell.
I got one of those. I got one of those.
I've got a lot of stuff in a lot of skeletons in my entrepreneurial closet. A jewelry store, a mail order company,
Certain stuff, what is it called?
Dermafil.
Dermafil.
embalming fluid.
You know,
Duck off.
but we sold it.
Duck off.
We sold it.
Seriously, no shit.
We called it Botox for the day. Botox.
Free samples are available.
Wow.
Anyway, I think I should leave you all at this point.
Well,
no.
Before I do, I want to say one thing. I'm very proud of all of you. That award, I have never gone after awards, ever. You know, that whole thing with the psychologically healthy workplace was not a solicited thing. In fact, there's a lot of due diligence that had my wife not been willing and stepped up to do it, that would have never happened. And now there's this thing, and there's some other new one coming from some local. The Heart Association has given us some deal and all that. But I've never really looked for outside third-party endorsement of what we do. But I've always believed the same things, and that is we're spending our lives together. We want to make it a happy, healthy experience for everybody. And so, you know, what's happened recently is because I've been here 44 years. Yeah. So I have a responsibility as the owner to make sure that the next generation is in place and that the ownership, there's integrity to the ownership, because honestly, if I just sold the business, I would have had to split it up, and 6 months after I sold it, the idea that Team Horner ever existed wouldn't exist anymore. And so we've got great, capable next generation leadership in place here. And just for the record, Mike came to Team Horner in 1979, 8 or 9. Okay, so he is, and so I'm very proud of him and all that he's contributing to the team. And the day in March of 2011 when he called me and says, "Hey, we need to talk," I'll never forget that.
Thank you.
And anyway, then there's the ownership side, and this ESOP is not the cleanest way for me, but it's the best way for all of you. And for those of you who are especially under 40 or under 50, if you stay with this company for a long time, it's going to mean a lot in your life when you get to be where I'm at. So I think it's pretty cool.
And we all thank you for that.
Thank you.